All right, today's guest is all about keeping it simple. He authored the books Radically Simple Strength and more recently Radically Simple Muscle. I'm talking about none other than the infamous Paul Horn. Welcome back to the podcast, Paul.
Dude, you're getting good at these setups. Man. Thank you for having me
I just
back.
I just lay in bed at night dreaming up the intro.
What was
That's the
the
only thing I'm
hardest
prepared for.
what was the hardest one you had to do?
Hardest intro.
Yeah, the one you like
Um,
struggled with the most.
oh
Like, what
man,
do I
I
say
mean,
about this guy?
probably when we interview our clients because they're not as public a figure as you and there's less information about them, so you got to do more digging and come up with
You're
some good stuff.
like you're like, here's Dave.
Right. Digital barbell client Dave. Well,
Yeah, my
last
man.
time we had you on was episode 221 and you just released Radically Simple Strength. How has the reception to that book been, and like what's it done since we talked last?
It's funny that you bring that up because I don't look at reviews. I try not to look at reviews. I've heard from every author I respect, like, don't do it. You didn't write your book for everyone. So,
Yeah.
like Harry Potter has 1-star reviews. Like, what? Okay, are we going to say that book was a failure?
Totally
Like,
unrealistic. One star.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, it's not for everyone. So I've tried to avoid reading reviews. However, I just, every once in a while you want to go in and see what's going on. And I'll learn not to do it, but that was my first book. So, and I just went in yesterday and there was this amazing review. Like, it just made my day. Like, the guy just, everything I wanted to convey, he picked up on. And then the one like after that was like, Paul Horn needs to stay in his lane. Like, he's offering outdated nutrition advice, like, whatever. Just like, I'm like, okay, yes, sorry, you should eat protein, and then you're like mad at the guy all day.
Yeah. And then you
Yeah.
realize it's actually the outdated stuff that actually works in real life.
Yeah, right. I mean, who, you don't know who this, there was a guy who didn't even read it and just like commented on my picture. He's like, it was like clear he just looked at the back of the book and then wrote me like a 1-star review. Like, you didn't even read the book. So anyway,
Okay, so
no,
beyond the reviews, how's the have you enjoyed having it out in the wild?
it's good. Yeah, it's great. And the just, it's been out long enough now that people have had time to work with it.
Hmm.
And the most of the comments are, we have this very, I mean, it's, in my view, blows my mind that our Reddit community has grown to what it is, because I didn't think anybody was going to show up
Hmm.
when I started it. But I'm spending more and more time there every day, and guys have these questions about, as they go through it, and it seems like it's working well. So I have a little folder on my desktop where I save, good
Yeah.
emails, just because, you get in that slump of like, what am I
Yeah.
doing with my life?
Right.
Like, I need to go work at a bank or something. Like, who do you think you are? You think you have the right to do this? I'm like, so I go read that, and the guy's like, hey man, I'm like, I lost 30 pounds, and my dad told me like I look muscular for the first time in my life. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. So
I think
yeah,
you included that in an email recently. That was really cool to read.
yeah, that was a good one. That guy, I don't, so it's good, and it feels good to know that it's actually working.
Well,
Like,
like we were talking about before we started recording. It's perfect timing that you're back on the podcast because you wrote another book, Radically Simple Muscle, and you wrote it as an ebook. And I believe now it's actually available to order in print. Tell us about that book.
boom, perfect timing. So yes, this is a proof copy because Amazon hasn't even sent me my own copy yet. But yes, it's a lot thinner. It was never intended to be a book, like a real book. But I get it. It's kind of sucks reading stuff on your
Yeah.
computer and your Kindle. So people asked for it, and I resisted for a long time. And then I was like, okay, so formatting a paperback is horrible. And yeah, so I converted it into a real book, and now it's up on Amazon as of yesterday. So you can pick it up. It's my, you know, starting strength was, or sorry, radically simple. I didn't write starting strength.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks,
How are
man. It's
sales on that book, by the
500,000 copies, just killing it. No, I wrote radically simple strength. You know, now that I look back on it, it was really, it's strength training. It's
Mhm.
you know, with a little bit of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And but I'm always trying to stay a couple steps ahead of the readers, the guys that I'm helping, because so I have to keep experimenting, because so I'm ready when they, you know, when they're like, okay, now what do I do? I have the answer versus like, I don't know, you should go. I wrote my book. So
Yeah. Go find Mike
uh
Matthews.
yeah, like I'm done here. No, so I is, you know, by the time Radically Simple Strength actually came out, I had moved on to experimenting with more bodybuilding stuff, and that's really the trajectory that I noticed with every
Mhm.
client. It's like, I'm weak, I want to get strong, now I'm fat, and now I want to go back to bodybuilding. And or I want to try body, like I don't want to, I
Yeah.
want to, I'm, it's great, I can pull 405 or whatever, no one can tell that I lift weights
Right.
and I
I
have a
look
belly.
obese. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, the radically simple strength has a lot on cutting and losing
Hmm.
body fat, but you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm either going to be a competitive power lifter
Yeah.
or, you know, I'm kind of beat up, all the just like focus on heavy barbell training all the time. I'm over it. I still want to maintain my lifts. I still want to make progress as I, you know, when I can. It doesn't have to be as quick,
Hmm.
but I'd really like to focus on some variety and some bodybuilding stuff. And that was my own, that was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I put that program together and wrote it all out in the ebook, and then put that out. And then in the meantime, I started experimenting with like really low volume. So I, for, you know, those algorithms, like, for some reason I got nothing but Dorian Yates and Mike Menser little Instagram reels with the captions and stuff like
Right.
all day. And of course, I'm clicking on them like, and I had
Yeah.
heard about those guys. I mean, I knew all about them back in the 90s or early 2000s when I got into bodybuilding stuff. But I was like, these guys are on a ton of gear. This is not for
Yeah.
me.
Right.
And now that I'm 43 and really tired of just the grind of lifting, I was like, hey, maybe, you know what? I've never actually done this.
Yeah.
Like, how little can I really get away with?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I started experimenting with, I took the program in here, which is pretty simple, but it does have a lot of variety, a lot of assistance
Hmm.
exercises. And I was like, what can I cut out of this? You know, how many exercises and how many sets can I cut, and like what can I get away with? And so I put up a YouTube video about this new experiment, and I put the template up for free. I just called it Radically Simple Essentials, because like,
Mm.
you always have to have a cool on brand name for
Oh,
your
yeah. And a
program.
thumbnail.
Yeah, exactly. So that went up, and then in the meantime, I tried to hack at it even more. So and I just ran it and to see what would happen. And it's really like a focus on intensity. Like if
Yeah.
you can get away with, if I can get away with one set and it keeps going up every week,
Yeah.
like I'm just get, why not do, so now I'm in and out of the gym in 30 minutes, and I kind of screwed myself because I don't think I'm ever going back to like if you were like, you need to do 2 sets of squats, I'd be like, are you insane?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like, just for some context though, because I understand the, like, the high intensity, low volume stuff. And I think it really does work for, making some progress and for certainly for maintenance, but more so in people like you and I that have a lot of years under our belt and have, like, gone through the process of, like you outlined in the first book. That's kind of the base that you need to build. You're not going to get strong
Absolutely.
with super low volume
No.
training.
And more importantly, you, and this is, yeah, this is actually a really important point, and I stress this a lot. I write over and over on the sales page, on the Amazon page, in the book, this is not a beginner program,
Hmm.
because you, like you said, you don't know how to lift, and you don't know how to grind, you
Hmm.
know, when you're starting out. I mean, even it years in. It took 5 years or more for me to understand what it really meant to push on a weight. Because you know, when you're starting out, it's like it feels, you're like, it feels a little heavy, and you just rack it.
Yeah.
And but in order to make a program that's one set do anything, you have to have developed the neuromuscular
Yeah.
efficiency to maintain your
Uh-huh.
form under like real heavy weight, and through those few reps that you're actually gonna like, it's those last reps that are, if it's gonna work at all, it's because of those last reps. And if
Mm-hmm.
you give up or quit early, or just, or your form collapses because you don't know how to hold it together while you're really exerting yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it'll never work. So
Yeah.
absolutely not. It won't do. If I had found this program when I was starting out, it would have done nothing.
Yeah.
But
That's
now,
one of the big, things about having a coach is like they can watch your set and be like, okay, you think that was an RPE 9 or 10, that was a 6. And, getting to the point where you can know what an RPE 10 feels like. And like you said, maintaining your form at that level of
yeah,
intensity too.
we were just talking about that. I had two guys on our Reddit who were kind of new, and they're posting questions like, "It's my fifth workout. Can I jump to the intermediate program?" It's like five. You're on workout five, and he's and just like overthinking everything. So I was doing, you know 5 kilo increases, or 10 kilo. Now I want to do like 7.5. And it's like, dude, just lift the weight. Like, don't
Make it heavier.
follow. Yeah, like, you haven't earned a right to have an opinion on this. Like, you just, and that's not a knock. You don't know, but that, I'm sure
You're
you
still
have clients
learning.
like that. These like guys who overthink everything, and they just can't get out of their own way. It's like, put your head down, follow the program.
Right.
And how are you? He's like, I don't know if I can recover from my next deadlift of, I think it was like 200 pounds. He's like 32. I was like, dude, you know how you figure that? First of all, you can for sure, but also you figure that out by going to 205 and trying
Right.
it.
Right.
Like, you don't like
You
write
don't
a
analyze your way there.
you don't build a spreadsheet on the probability that you're going to get 200 and then decide that you need to be an intermediate 5 workouts in. Like, just,
Right.
but
Just ask Chat
they
GTP if you're going to get
they're yeah, but they don't, they don't know that, and they're really into it. They're really
Yeah.
excited about it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so they're analyzing everything. And you gotta, there's a time to do that, but early on, it's like, listen to the dude who's been doing this for 20 years and wrote the book you bought. Just do it. Just
Yeah.
do it, and try, and then you don't have to think.
Yeah.
Just lift.
That's the point of having the
And
coach.
yeah, exactly. So yes, you do. We absolutely have to kick guys in the ass sometimes.
Well, I hope you sell 1 million copies of this, the new book too. Hopefully,
I mean, that would
promoting it
be,
to our
yeah.
dozens of listeners is going to move the needle for sure.
If the chest hair and the
The smile.
naked photo on the top, oh yeah, if that doesn't do it, I give up. That was like, I had a dream the other night, but right before this came out, I woke up and I freaked out, and I just like turned to my fiance and I was like, I can't publish that cover. It's so lame. It's so like, this has been the cover for
Uh-huh.
months, and
Yeah.
I was like, this is the stupidest cover. Like, how am I going to do that? She was like, it's fine. It
I
looks
think
good. Put
the only thing that could have made it better is if you had them crop it into just above your waistline so you couldn't tell that you're wearing shorts, and people would just had this like mystique about it. Like, is he wearing pants?
Yeah, that would have been, yeah,
That's
that would
one
have
way to
been
go.
good. This was actually personal for, I mean, obviously it's personal, but like, I hate it when you get a book from a guy and it's like a stock photo of
Mm,
some dude with abs.
yeah.
Like, if you see these guys on these fitness guys on Twitter with they've got like 100 ebooks
Mm,
for, for every possible thing.
yeah.
It's like,
Here's my
it's
elbow
just,
program.
yeah, right. My bicep program, my tricep program, my bulking program, my super bulking program, like my get shredded program, my beast mode program, my whatever. You're like, dude, this is how many template, like, are you just, it's this, it's got to be the same thing. But they never, it's always a stock photo of a guy.
Huh.
And,
Interesting. I didn't realize
you
that.
know, oh yeah, it's, and I see you go on, like, I have to look for stock photo library. Sometimes you're like, oh, that's that dude with abs. That's on that guy's website and that guy's ebook. And I was like, if you can't stand behind, if you're gonna put a photo on your work, back it up,
Yeah, put you
you
on there.
know? And I'm like, all right, that's the best, photo of me looking like that for 30 seconds that I have.
All the air is blown out.
Oh God. Yeah. We talked about this before. Just like put the curl bar down
And then take the picture.
and then it's gone. It's 20 seconds later, you look 30 pounds heavier. So
Oh man, my face already hurts
whatever.
from laughing so much. But
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
so this is only part of what we're going to talk about today. Let's get into the real meat of the subject. We thought it would be fun to, you know, take our own real life experience in training and from things that we've learned from coaching people over the years and talk about things that we've changed our mind on or just big lessons that we've heard along the way. So we've each put together a list of things. Why don't we go back and forth on these things so we can give our voices a break from talking between ones? Does that sound good?
Yeah. I think that's a
All right.
great idea.
These are in no particular order from my list, but the first thing,
Okay.
and this really ties into something we already started talking about, but something I've changed my mind on is that the traditional novice linear progression that a lot of people will know what that means is the best way for new trainees to start building strength, and especially people that are not working either online with a coach or in person with a coach. So
You changed your mind to that opinion or from that opinion?
from that opinion, I used to think that
Ooh,
was
this is
back
good.
back when I drank the starting strength Kool-Aid back in I guess it was 2013 or 2014, went to Wichita Falls, did the whole thing. I was convinced that this is where everybody should start to get strong. Come over to our garage. We're going to do 3 sets of 5. We're going to follow the
Yeah.
novice linear progression, which if you guys don't know, and I might butcher this because it's been so long since I've like read up on it. You basically have 2 workouts that you go back and forth between. The first workout is 3 sets of 5 squats, 3 sets of 5 overhead press, and 1 set of 5 deadlifts. And then the B workout that you alternate between swaps the press for the bench press,
You
and
got it.
and you just add
That's
5 pounds. So you end up
There
squatting
you go.
3 times per week, right? So
60
you're
pounds a
adding,
month at least.
right. So, and this is the process that I went through back, after I drank the Kool-Aid, like I said, and I just thought this is what you're supposed to do. I mean, it works every time you do the program and it works, but
Yeah.
I've changed, and therefore I thought it was the best way for just about anybody to get strong because it works so well. But now I realize looking back and looking at my own experience and coaching people through that process and coaching people in ways that are not that process, that number one, the process is so stinking boring. The program is boring. It's just back and forth between these 2 workouts. You know exactly what you're going to do every day, which sometimes is a good thing because you don't have to worry about it. And sometimes it's a bad thing because you're dreading it because it's getting heavier every
Oh
single
yeah.
workout, especially as
Yeah.
you start getting 3/4 of the way through, as heavy as you're going to get during this
That's
progression.
when they start quitting.
That's the thing is
Yeah.
it's boring, it's dreadful, and people quit it because it gets so hard,
I have
which,
a question, but what
okay.
is are you talking about, is this opinion as a business owner or as someone recommending just fitness, like you just got a guy who wants to get strong?
It's got to be from both because,
It's across the board.
yeah, because I've been in that person's shoes and known my back is still sore from, doing 3 sets of squats at 275 2 days ago, but now I got to go in and squat 280 for 3 sets of 5. And should I be rewarded by completing that? All I get to do is go even heavier the
Go
next
up 5
workout.
pounds. Yeah.
So like, I know that,
Congratulations.
so from the client perspective, I can see why it leads to less compliance. And then from a business owner's perspective too, like I'm trying to balance challenging people without just wearing them out, making them hate their training and going to look for
Right.
something that's more enjoyable. So The other side of it is, and I dealt with this a lot, and I know other people do too, because there's entire videos about it. You probably even have videos on your YouTube channel about it. Is you get strong so quickly in that progression that your tendons and ligaments can't keep up with how quick your muscles are getting stronger, and you end up with just wicked tendonitis, particularly in the elbows in a lot of people. Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm gonna jump in here and say one that we're not done with yours, but that was on my list of that in like the ones I'm not
Uh-huh.
gonna talk about today in terms of things I've changed my mind about. I think Ripito was right about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I still today find things where like, oh man, he did tell me that. Like,
Yeah.
but that grip, that thumbs on top grip
Yep.
that starting strength advocates, it causes tendonitis. It
No
that's
doubt.
it like you might not get tendonitis. There are guys who, but if you're gonna get tendonitis,
Mm-hmm.
it's because of that grip.
Yeah.
And the longer I've coached, I don't even have guys, if they come in already doing it and they're
Mm-hmm.
fine, that's fine. But the first thing that we change as soon as those elbows start flaring up
Mm-hmm.
is wrap your thumb around, because it's just too easy to do that with your
Yeah.
thumb on top. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing that I'm like, okay, you're wrong about that.
Yeah.
I,
I mean,
I
I,
totally understand the argument. I
yeah.
understand the logic behind it. And
Uh-huh.
if you do it perfectly, it works. But most people learning how to lift don't do it perfectly, and they end up pissing off their elbows. And that's nasty. As you know, that's
And it
nasty.
takes forever to heal.
Totally. Yeah.
And I would even say, like, if you can coach somebody up to understand what it feels like to have your hands on the bar, but to feel no weight in your hands and feel all that weight on
Right.
your back, you've accomplished the same thing. And the other thing about the thumbs on top of the bar grip is, unless you have, the strongest knurling in the world on your barbell, there's a good chance that the bar is going to slide down on your back a little bit during your super heavy set of 5 squats, which is going to cause you to
Or
start
up.
pushing
Yeah.
or up. You're going to end up pushing your hands into the bar to keep it into position, and you're just loading that tendon with way more weight than it's prepared to handle, and boom, like it could just come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, like, you can't even pour coffee out of a pitcher without extreme pain. So anyway, what I've changed my mind to now is to still include all of the compound lifts that the novice linear progression includes, but we don't have to necessarily add 5 pounds to your squat 3 times a week. We don't necessarily have to squat 3 times a week. We don't have to get you as strong as possible as quickly as possible. And I would also say, like, from the compliance standpoint, making it more interesting, we include a ton more accessory work right off the bat with our clients, in addition to the heavy compounds. Not only does it make it more fun, but you start to see more of the visual results that people really want to see, not just like that they rip their jeans stepping up into their truck because their legs and butt have gotten so big from squatting 3 times a week.
Yeah. And then you're like, hey, and also you need to drink a gallon of milk if you want this to keep working. Um,
I gained a lot of weight on my novice linear progression, but I didn't go the gallon
yeah.
of milk route.
Oh man, I did. Not I did it after and just blew up to 250. And whew,
Yeah.
that was yeah.
Bet you were snoring like
Um
crazy.
yeah. Hey, okay, what's up? Yeah, I know. This
Take me for a walk.
we're off our schedule today.
Yeah.
This 9 a.m. podcast is not part of
Yeah.
schedule.
It's all right.
It's like, dude,
Everybody
we're
watches
supposed to
us
be at the
lunch
dog park
dogs.
right now. Um,
So that's
okay.
the first thing that I've changed my mind on over the years.
Yeah. Yeah. See, let's see. I would disagree with you, but that's the point of this. I see the argument.
Mm-hmm.
And, but if you, so radically simple strength was like my take on coaching that stuff and kind of learning the same lessons that, everybody who drinks the Kool-Aid, as you say, you come 10 years in, you go, okay, this is what I've learned about this, and your
Yeah.
takeaway was different than mine. I think that so the novice programs in my book are similar in structure to starting strength. My tweaks were, we're going to do ascending sets because they're faster,
Mhm.
And, if everything works for a novice, then like one heavy top set will work until it doesn't. And then we'll just
Right.
move on. So it also makes it quicker. And mentally, they only have to work on that. They only have to wrestle with that one hard set and then they're done, you
Yeah.
know? But the boringness of it and the repetitiveness of it, I think, is a feature, not a bug.
I get that. I get that.
Because most people they either don't know what to do at all, and they're over, and nowadays with the internet, they're completely overwhelmed with like all those guys selling all those programs with all, and so to be like, look, dude, there's 4 exercises. That's not the important part. The important part is you need to learn how to push weight. And
Hmm.
so it's going up every time. And whether you like it or not, we're putting more weight on. And then they like, so they can develop that ability. Cause we were talking about earlier, like learning, if you're going to make a low volume program work in 5 years, you need to learn how to really push yourself. And that happens early on.
Yeah.
And so I want them, and like we were talking about earlier, like the boring stuff is the stuff that works. Like boring, that lesson needs to be beaten into you
For
with
sure.
training, with nutrition. And I also think you have to earn the right to curl. you know, you don't get to go. It's just like you don't get to have your dessert before you eat your vegetables. Like you gotta put in the work, and then I'm gonna reward you. And then, but you know, the run the novice program for 9 months thing is like, okay, that guy is the rare exception. So
Yeah.
I cut my novice program off. It's like, dude, if you make it like 4 months,
Yeah.
just go to the intermediate program
Yeah.
and then let's get into the variety. But you know,
Yeah.
I see what
And
you're saying. I
we still do. I mean, even a brand new client, once we know they have barbell experience or we're going to coach them, we still do the boring stuff every single week, and we still add weight every single week. But instead of doing it so often, we might. I mean, we're still doing it every week, but we might see a variant of a squat later in the week, like a goblet squat or
Yeah,
a front squat, something like that, instead of just adding weight to that same lift over and over again. Because
yeah,
of course, we're not blind to the fact that you got to do the thing a lot of times just to get good at it. We've just
yeah.
found what we feel like is a really good balance that our clients appreciate with it.
I mean, what's the only answer you need is that they keep coming back,
Right.
And
Right.
trust me,
And they don't get hurt.
dude, I learned it, as when I started, it was like, we are doing the starting strength program. And if you don't like it, you need to sack up. And they're like, okay, I'm also just going to leave your gym
Right.
and,
Yeah. Yeah.
not pay you anymore. And I was like,
Right.
oh, yeah, I've got like a business to run.
Yeah. We
So
have overhead here.
maybe I should take my clients' feelings
Yeah.
and into consideration. So
Yeah.
it's a balancing act, right?
Yep.
That's what we do. You gotta look at the person you're dealing with and like, do you need the carrot or the stick? Do you need
Yeah.
me to do you need me to be a drill sergeant or a therapist? And
Hmm.
please say drill sergeant, because I I don't
unless
have the tools of
unless you can charge
empathy
the therapist rates also.
that, how we would, all personal trainers would be billionaires if we could charge therapy rates. But no, we do 95% psychotherapy and 5%
Barbell
teaching people
training.
how to lift weights, but we don't get paid that way. Yeah,
We'll talk about
meanwhile,
that next time
by the
we do
way,
this.
just as an aside, that psychotherapy has to be the sweetest gig. And you have a room in your house and you charge $600 an hour to go. How did you feel about that?
$600 an hour. Wow. That
Well,
you
I grew up I'm from Los Angeles,
California,
so
yeah.
yeah, we
Man,
got the hotshot guys, but yeah, and they're just like, oh, and they're not allowed to tell you what to do.
that's a
Like
good
that's
point.
part
Yeah.
of yeah. So they're just like, oh, what
You have
did
to
what
listen.
did your mother do to you? And how did that make you feel? You're like, what am I? Okay, anyway, this
I
is
mean, you might be
we'll do.
exposing a niche here where it does combine legitimate psychotherapy, counseling therapy with barbell training. I mean, think if you're
I wanted to
looking to
put that
sell
on my services, like strength, like monthly membership, blah, blah, and then just psychotherapy like 10
unlicensed
times.
psychotherapy. Buyer
Exactly.
beware.
Exactly.
All right,
Yeah.
what's your
All
number one
right.
on your list?
In no particular order, I think my number one is that you don't need to get fat,
Mm,
which, coming out of the same world, it was like just gain weight. You need to gain weight. And that is true. And if you are a young man, I think we talked about this last time I was on here, but if you're a young guy in your 20s and you want to be jacked in your 40s, it would serve you well to get as big and strong as you can in your 20s when you've got the hormones to do that and the ability to recover and the ability to train hard. And that's going to mean getting a little fatter. That's fine. And then
hmm.
at 35 on, you can cut that off and you'll just have built this base of muscle. But we don't get, I don't get a lot of clients that are in their early 20s because they
Yeah.
don't have the money and they don't care and they just figure it out. So, so my average guys are like 30, 45,
Hmm.
55, but you come from the world of, if you're going to do this, you need to gain weight. You need to be 275 at
Yeah.
like 5'7", and there's only so much muscle tissue the human body can build in a month. And I
Yeah.
think the last time I checked, and I'm sure someone will correct me on this, but the last time I looked into this, it was like 2 pounds of lean tissue per month that you can build in like optimal circumstances as a novice,
Yeah. I
which
would.
comes with other stuff. You add water, you add,
Hmm.
fat, bone, tendon. So call it 4 pounds a month to get 2 pounds of actual muscle tissue. Beyond that, if you're gaining more than 4 pounds a month, you're just
Yeah.
getting fatter. And that's okay. It's fine. But as you probably found out, and so many people that I've talked to and just friends and colleagues and clients, it's like most people take that too far and get too fat. And you end up looking like you don't even look, you just look like a doughy meatball.
And like, you're really doing yourself a disservice too, because probably the habits that it took for you to gain all that weight, those might be kind of difficult to stop doing when it comes time to lose the weight. It's not like we're just existing in this vacuum or we're like, now I shall, eat to gain weight and now I'll turn off all those habits and I
Right.
shall be super disciplined with my diet and lose the weight. No, like you might get really used to eating all those delicious, hyper
Yeah.
palatable foods and milkshakes and stuff like that. And you might want to keep doing it even when you get tired of having all that extra weight on you. It might be really hard to actually lose weight.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you're there are the rare skinny dudes that, struggle to even weigh 165. And they do need to have that message hammered home of like, dude, just eat as much as you possibly can because you're not going to get fat. And the moment that you just stop trying to gain weight, you'll just lose it all.
Yeah.
But most, the average doughy kind of fluffy, I don't know whether to bulk or cut guy, you know,
Yeah.
like I saw a post the other day. It was a guy who was like, he was probably almost 40% body fat.
Hmm.
It's like, dude, and it was like, do I bulk or cut? It's like, you cut.
Yeah.
Trust me, you have enough energy on board to run a novice progression or any and get real strong and still lean out.
Yeah.
So
I
and
mean,
yeah, they just go ahead.
what would you say, like, in my mind, if somebody asked me that question, if I estimate they're, somewhere in the 12 to 15% body fat range, then the answer is to bulk. If they're less than that,
I think 15% is like the sweet spot.
hmm,
I think that's like I in my experience,
and depends how old they are too.
yeah, for sure. We can skew that up if you're, older, but 15% is manageable. Like you can kind of just cruise in that. Once you get there, it's, if you're 25, it's hard to it's hard to get down there. But once you're there and you live there, you kind of, you can still enjoy your life. You can go out to dinners, you can have a couple extra drinks and you're just kind of always around that.
Yeah.
And but you can train hard too. I noticed that my strength, anytime I cut, my strength hangs on pretty well, even goes up until I get below like 13%. And
Hmm.
then it like falls off a cliff. And I just like everything aches and I feel like terrible. And I just, yeah. But 15, like I'm good there. So,
Yeah, I think it's a
you
good
know,
compromise.
yeah, that's just it's like maintainable. You look good, you look athletic. You're not ripped, but you might have a vein in your bicep or something, depending on
Yeah.
your how thick your skin is. And you look like you're in shape, but you don't look fat. And you but you can also train hard and live your life. And
Yeah.
so if you got a guy coming in who's, a lot heavier than that or a lot fatter than like, don't bulk.
Yeah.
Don't bulk up. Now, yeah, now if you're young and you're coming in around like 17% and you're starting out, I would try and hang on and get stronger because
Yeah.
you'll recompose,
Yeah.
you'll lose the fat and you'll gain some muscle in that little beginner phase, which is amazing. But
And you can always just see how long you can get stronger where you're at with your maintenance calories then and add more in if you start to strength plateau. You don't have to jump to eating 5,000 calories per day right off the
yeah, and
bat.
one of the things that I've noticed recently, especially talking to a lot of these younger guys who are just starting out on Reddit, is we're doing a casual kind of fat loss challenge for our community between now and like the week of Christmas, we're going to call it. And it's just for fun. I wanted to see if I could lose 10 pounds and I figured some accountability would help. But you've got guys who are fat, like they have a high body fat percentage. They're trying to cut down from like 250 or something. And
Yeah.
they're like, man, I'm really feeling I'm down to 240 and I'm really feeling it in the gym. It's like, no, you're
Yeah.
not. You're not.
You
It's
got
in your
plenty of
head.
reserve energy.
There's no way you're not eating enough food to do what you're doing in the gym.
Right.
And yeah, but that it's psychological.
Yeah.
You're cutting. Everybody tells you when you cut, you lose strength.
Yeah.
But you have no frame for that. It's like, yeah, you do later. Like when you're creeping up on 10%, I'll
Yeah.
believe you.
Right. Yeah.
Right now, you're fine. You're fine.
And I think it's good to remind people that are trying to gain weight, realistically to hit those numbers you were talking about, as far as like how much muscle you can gain in a month realistically, that only takes like a 15% calorie surplus to
Yeah.
optimize giving your body enough nutrients to build muscle. So
Yeah.
I don't know about
But
you, but it's real easy to eat an extra 200 or 300 calories per day without like feeling like I'm bulking.
yeah, yes. And that was the big, coming from I was a 165 pound, 5 pound vegan. I got up to a 252 pound, recreationally competitive power lifter. And then I was like, okay, I'm fat. And
Yeah.
and then cut back down. But my PRs, my best lifting was after I had lost all that fat. So
Interesting.
I busted through all because like we talked about earlier, it's like I was still training and I was developing that ability to maintain my form under. I was getting better at the technique and
Hmm.
better mentally at pushing and getting all that stuff out of my head about, oh, I'm in a calorie deficit or like, and just psychologically becoming a better lifter. And so having,
Yeah.
having lost all that weight and then my strength went up, it's like, okay, I don't think you need to get fat. I don't think you
Right.
need to get as fat.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
put it that way.
Yeah, you need to be more patient than just like piling
Yeah,
it on. Yeah.
but so many people in that world take even the coaches, even the coaches, like it's an attractive message of
Yeah.
like just and I've always said like I love Ripeto's consistency. He's like, I'm not watering this down. I'm promising you, I will make you stronger. This is what you do. You put 5 pounds on the bar, you eat 5,000 calories a day, and you get big and strong. And like, there's room for all kinds of nuance in there, but he's smart enough to know, like,
Yeah.
nope, I'm not watering this down. you know, it was like, yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah,
So
and there's a
I
whole topic of
appreciate
health
that.
also.
Right. But I appreciate the, it's you're selling, it's marketing, you're selling.
Yeah.
So make it as simple as possible, um, and have people figure, and, so I did appreciate that. But
Yeah, I agree. All right, I'm going to
all
move
right,
on
your
to number
turn.
2. All right, something I've changed my mind on is that following the 80-20 rule is a good way to make progress. I think like this is just
Okay.
something you just kind of hear out there in the ether, and I think a lot of coaches
The
even throw
Pareto
this out to their
principle.
yeah, exactly. I wrote a whole article
Yeah.
about this on our blog, but
Do they talk about snap peas in his garden?
oh,
Yeah,
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It was really based on yeah his experience in his garden, but
yeah,
we've turned it into something completely else. That we feel like, and coaches are notorious for telling their clients this too. That as long as you're 80% on track, the other 20% you're off track won't derail your progress. And I've probably said that to people when I was a new coach too. I never say that anymore because what are we talking about? Are we talking about 80% of you did 80% of your workouts? Are we talking about you gave an 80% effort on the workouts that you did do? 80% of the food you ate was good, whatever that means. What was the other 20%? Like, what are we 80% of the day you were eating healthy food? And then the other 20, like, there's no way to put any real numbers to any of this. And
right,
because of that, it creates this distorted perception in somebody's mind where it's like, well, I was mostly good. Again, what does that mean? But why am I not getting the results that I want? Because probably about 80% of the time I was doing pretty good. Yeah, there was the other 20%. So that creates a lack of results in people. And then that just completely demotivates them, makes them feel like they're messing up, that they're, not capable of getting results, creates this distorted relationship with what is good, what is bad. And boom, people just kind of like get frustrated and give up.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so my understanding of that principle is that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. So
That's the correct way to apply the 80-20 rule.
yeah, so you look at, like we were talking about variety in programming, right? What is actually making you stronger?
Hmm.
Is it all these different assistance exercises? Is it, or is it the 20% of what you're doing, like squatting and deadlifting, that
Hmm.
is producing 80% of the results?
Yeah,
And I,
I
so
think I
yeah.
think if you apply the rule correctly, then then that makes sense. But
So you
nobody's
said the
thinking
lesson
about
I
that.
learned is that applying the
Thinking about
Pareto principle incorrectly is not a good idea.
yeah, yeah, you make a valid point. But just, I'm sure you've seen on social media where all these coaches like, you can't mess this up. Just stay on track 80% of the time and you'll get the results that you want. That's how people are now applying the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Nobody actually is saying that like, 80% of my fat loss is because the 20% of the work I spent, hitting my calories and eating enough protein. Like
Right.
that's my
Right.
goal, is to teach people that focusing on the 20% of the things that really matter will get you
Yes.
80% of the results. But we've distorted it into this 80% on track,
80% is
20%
good
off
enough.
track. Yeah,
Oh,
or just
okay.
80,
All
as long
right.
as we're on track 80% of the time, or we do an 80% good job,
Yeah. I've heard,
we'll see
who was
results.
it? A lot of the diet guys go like, stick to your diet 90% of the time. Hey,
Yeah.
you need to go outside. I'm on a podcast. Come
Get
on,
that dog.
get out there. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that you do hear that a lot. So what does that mean?
Well,
That's
it
that's
means, well, I think, okay, so I'm actually thinking about this a lot right now because my next challenge. I feel like I've covered my bases with, strength training advice. I feel like
mhm,
I've done a decent job of like, all right, here's what I think you should do. The hard one is nutrition. And so
mhm,
that's my next like thing I'm going to try and tackle. And it's a psychology problem.
mhm.
It's everybody knows what to eat, or at least they know what not to eat, but they don't do it.
Yeah.
And so there's all these, it's a whole psychological battle. It goes on 24/7. But one of the things is getting frustrated and demotivated. And so I did a little email survey with my email list, asking them tell me like what are the hardest parts about sticking to a diet? When in your life was there like a bright spot where you were actually good, and what was happening? And but one of the most common responses is I have one bad day and it just I fall off the rails. It turns into
Mhm.
like a week-long bender. And I think keeping in mind, like, look, you got to be, you got to plan, but you're no one's going to stick to it 100%. You know, so if so, your goal is 90. Your goal is most of the time you're eating the way you're supposed to eat. You're going to mess up, and it's not the end of the world. Don't give up.
Yeah.
just just
Yeah. It's
but
the
if
all or
you
nothing
but if
mentality.
yeah, but if it's like, no, I have to be 100% compliant or I've failed, no one's going to do that, because every life won't let you. You're going to have to go out to dinner with your wife, or someone's going to bring over a bottle of whiskey and want to drink it with you, and you
Yeah.
need to do that because that's just rude if you don't.
Right.
But yeah, so I think
Yes, I think that's a great point. And so
what
instead of talking in terms of this 80-20 thing, what I think is more helpful is to like establish what is your identity, what is the identity of the person that you want to be as far as when it comes to like your health, your fitness,
yeah,
all those things. What are the actual behaviors that line up with that identity? And then all those things just kind of become your default. We don't need to think about it in terms of percentages or anything like that. And then when life happens, somebody shows up with the bottle of whiskey, that falls outside of the scope of what you normally do on your routine, but it's such a small
right.
percentage of how many things you do is regarding your nutrition, your workouts, whatever. It has no impact on your results because it's not part
Yeah.
of your normal routine.
Yeah. I
That's
get
that's
it.
my that's my thinking about
All
it.
right.
And this whole like, we talk a lot in this podcast about the on track, off track mentality, and that really just boils down to what you just said. The like, I have one bad day and it sends me off track, and
Yeah.
that's that is the thing. As soon as we can solve that problem, we can help people get in shape and never lose their results for the rest of their life, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that James Clear's thing of never miss twice.
Yeah.
Just, everybody, like, it's not a problem until it's a pattern, right? So you're
Yeah.
gonna you're gonna screw up. And that's the cool thing about nutrition versus weightlifting. Like, if you have a bad workout, if you go into the gym and you just have a bad deadlift session, you got to wait a week at least, to try that again, to get back on track, to know
Mm-hmm.
that you're in the game. The good and the bad part about diet is that it's a constant battle. You eat multiple times a day, every single day, which means you have to make good decisions a
Mm-hmm.
lot. But it also means if you make a bad one, you can get right back on track in 3 hours.
Right. If
It's
you want
not the
to,
end of
yeah.
the world. There's
Yeah.
so many opportunities to both screw up and do it right, that it's like, if you can get in your head, like, look, okay, so that wasn't what I was supposed to eat, but I'm not done. Like, I can just, tomorrow morning, I got to have breakfast, and I'm just going to have a good breakfast.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
the key. Like, I like the way you said that because it really is that simple, and people overcomplicate it in their mind. Maybe even subconsciously, like they overcomplicate it in their mind because they have gotten into this loop of like self sabotaging when they get a certain level of progress rolling, but they never really
dude,
change
wait, are
their
you charging
identity.
me for your therapy rates right now?
But it's true. I mean, it's there's I didn't realize this until I started coaching people on nutrition, and even after maybe a couple of years of doing it, like it's I mean, I have more clients now that we don't really talk that much about calories and macros
Yeah.
and protein and fiber. We're trying to develop the habits, both mindset related and action, having plans for these situations that come up in their life that, help them shift their default habits to the person that they want to be. And that's really the only way to actually
Yeah.
get results and keep them.
Yeah, I was going through some of the stuff I collected for this new thing, and there was a blog post. I think Shane Parrish wrote it. And it was just a story about, it was about rules and having like personal rules. And he
Mm-hmm.
talked about a buddy who was trying to lose weight, and he just, like, one guy was doing all the calorie counting and whatever and didn't succeed. And then his other friend just had a rule that, like, whenever he went to a restaurant, he would order the healthiest thing on the menu. That was the rule. And it's so, but it's just, okay, that's my default. I don't even have to think. That's my default choice.
Yep.
And I think people who are successful long term, like you and I probably don't even think about this anymore. You know, I don't decide to go work out.
Yeah.
It's just I'm doing it.
It's part of who you are
You
now.
know, yeah, it right. And I don't decide to that I'm gonna eat as much protein as I do every day. It just would feel weird not to.
Yeah.
But
That's the goal.
people who the hard part for guys like us, where it's like we just kind of are that guy, is to help someone who's not that guy become that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough, man.
Yeah.
It's real, like they gotta, yeah. So whether it's rules or some guys need they need to track everything, and but it's a, yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
But I'm with you, man. Screw the 80-20 rule.
We took it a different direction, but I like the way that it went.
Yeah.
It's just something I like to harp on. So I've changed my
80
mind on that.
80% of what are you talking
80% of
about?
what? Yeah, because you can do a
Yeah.
lot of damage in 20% of the day if there's enough pizza around.
Well, yeah, I mean, although that the 80-20 principle would still hold there. 20% of what you did caused 80% of the
Yeah.
damage
But the
in
problem
your
is you do
training
that
program.
20% 100% of the days.
There we go. Yeah,
That would be a problem.
exactly.
All right, what you got?
All right, my next one would be that I've changed my mind on frequency of heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
And I when I came out of the starting strength program, the Texas method, it was like you're used to squatting 3 days a week. And you learn in that process, like you're doing 3 days a week and you're just adding weight every time. And then you go on vacation, or you take you miss Friday and maybe Monday because you took a trip. You go
Mm-hmm.
back on Wednesday and it's like it feels impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So because you're riding that adaptation wave
Yeah.
mentally, you don't understand, you're psyching yourself out a lot, thinking like if I miss a workout, I'm screwed. Because
Yeah.
stress recovery
Right.
adaptation.
Yeah.
You got to catch the peak before it starts to go down, like,
Yeah.
and that happens perfectly 3 days a week. So
Right.
what I've learned over time is, and again, this is something that you learn is more appropriate for in late intermediates and advanced lifters, is that you can, first of all, you can squat 1 day a week and still make progress. And I'm deadlifting now heavy. I started deadlifting heavy every other week about 2 years ago, just because I didn't care. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to deadlift heavy this week. And then I saw it happen with my clients, where a lot of times when my clients deadlift starts getting real heavy, they'll have a great set of 5, but it's a grinder. Like, so they hit it. And then the next week I would notice they can't even get their last warm up. So they have a
Interesting.
terrible week. And then they'd be like, I only got 1 rep. And then I'd be like, okay, don't worry about it. And then the next week they'd smoke their deadlift. And I was realizing that, and this is again something that Ripito talked about very early on in my coaching career, but I didn't get it until later. We assume that you're going to go through that process of stress recovery, adaptation, or whatever you want to call it, in 7 days. That would be great.
Yeah.
It's like I deadlifted on Friday, and next Friday, I'll be perfectly ready to do that again. But if you grind out 550, you might not be ready until day 9 or 10. And if you try and deadlift on day 7 again, it ain't coming up off the ground. And so I've started, as I would, anytime I saw an intermediate client just grind through a lift, I would give them a lighter, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this week we're just going to go up to like 85%.
Yeah.
And then I just start doing that every time. They get to a point where I'm like,
Yeah.
the deadlift is the one where it hits first. I'm like, this is just I'm having to sprinkle in light days. I'm just giving you one every week. And
Mm-hmm.
and I've been doing that with my own lifting, like I said, for 2 years. And it's slower progress, but I'm always recovered, and I'm not injured. I haven't had to do any resets. And it's just like consistently over the course of the year, you make more progress than if you are like hitting a wall.
Hmm.
You eke out a PR and then you have a terrible workout and you feel, you're depressed. And then I've started doing it with the squat too. And like right now I'm squatting 1 day a week, and but it's I don't feel rusty. It's
Yeah.
just like I got that out of my head.
Yeah. That it has to be that way.
Yeah, like you can actually lift heavy 1 day every other week. And I still think you should do the movement
Uh
light
huh.
from week to week, because
Yeah.
just, you got to, otherwise
You
it's
got to
going to
grease the
feel,
groove, and you don't want to come back
yeah,
like relearning the
but
lift.
yeah, but I don't want to do anything heavy more than once a week. So right now I squat heavy and I'll deadlift light. And then the next week I'll deadlift heavy and squat light.
Hmm.
And it's fine. It works great.
Let me ask you this. This is kind of a tangent, but in the novice linear progression for starting strength, you only deadlift to a top set of five.
Yeah.
Um, in which that's definitely enough volume for a beginner anyway. But what do you think overall about sticking with that top set of five versus having more deadlift volume to like 3 sets of five, or the load's a little bit lighter, but 3 sets of 4 to 6, something like that?
I think that in that first phase, it's too much. I mean, if you think about, if you have an untrained lifter, and we know that anything they do will work for a period of time, then the goal is, let's do the minimum amount of work to
Yeah.
keep putting weight on this bar. Which is why the one change, like I mentioned earlier, the main change I made from starting strength was just doing ascending sets to a top set.
Hmm.
Because I was like, if anything will work for a while, then let's just do a top set. Why do we have to do three? I'll get them out of here in 40 minutes. They'll be
Yeah.
thrilled. And then when that stops working and we need more volume, we can bring more volume in. But
Hmm.
why do we have to start with 3 sets of five? And I do understand it's like the squat is technically, it's reps. You need practice,
Yeah.
right? And but why not do 5 by 5 ascending, and then the deadlift, like by the end of that workout, you're pulling a deadlift every week, one heavy set. You start adding more than that before it's necessary, and you're going to paint yourself into a corner, because that
Yeah.
young guy's we know that you can progress your deadlift to 405 with one set a week, or starting off with every time, and then twice a week, and then once a week. The novice, a young male novice lifter will be in the 400s when he ends that progression. So we know one set works, we know it's enough.
Yeah. Good
And then
point.
you have that card to play later, which is you can add more volume if you need it. What I've
Yeah.
found personally is that I need less volume. Like,
Yeah, but
seriously.
we're not in our 20s.
Right. But I maybe there's a time to add. I don't want to deadlift that much. But even for across the board, I don't think, this is not for competitive powerlifters, by the way. So
Right.
someone else can handle that. You can have Feigenbaum on again, and he'll talk to you about RPing, with 6 sets of 4 deadlifts at RPE 7 or whatever. Like that, I don't know anything about that. With my guys, it's like, dude, if one set of deadlifts is enough, let's just do that. And
Yeah.
maybe down the line, we need to do some volume as an intermediate to drive the heavy day. But
Yeah, or some RDLs or straight leg deadlifts or something as a variant.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. That's a good one.
All
All right.
right.
You ready for the next
So,
one? Is
yeah.
it my turn? Yes, my turn.
Yeah.
All right. This is my
Yes.
last one. Okay. I've changed my mind that I used to think that bodybuilding was stupid because it wasn't, quote,
Oh,
functional. Okay. I
yes.
used to think, growing up, I would just see the magazines in the grocery store. And, it's just like there's these guys. I didn't realize at the time they were all on steroids. That's why they look like that. But, and
How
then in,
dare you?
and then
How you can't prove that?
and then in 2009 is when we
Wow.
got into CrossFit. And of course, like they were very well, at the time, they were very anti bodybuilding. Now you download any CrossFitters program, and it's like 75% bodybuilding and
Yeah.
25%, well, maybe 50% bodybuilding, 25% CrossFit, and 25% strength training. But, I was kind of indoctrinated in those early days of CrossFit when there wasn't like a mirror in any gym that doing any sort of, isolation bodybuilding style exercise was completely ridiculous. It was just, for vanity. There was no functional benefit to it. And then actually, and people who listen to this podcast know this, but towards the end of, actually, I was past my novice linear progression. I was into doing the Texas method, and I tore my glute and bulged a disc in some order. I don't know if they happened at the same time or whatever, but the point was, like, I was sidelined for a minute. And that's when I kind of like, well, people are coming over to our house and training 3 times a week. I'm not just going to sit here and do nothing. So that's when I dipped my toe in the bodybuilding world, because I could still do a lot without, loading my spine and all that kind of stuff. And,
Yeah.
started to see, wow, this stuff actually works. And then I saw that, all those tendon injuries that I have started to kind of fade away as I wasn't lifting, completely heavy weights every single or multiple times per week. And I was actually strengthening the tendons by doing lighter loads with higher reps and seeing the muscles that other people who were just doing CrossFit or lifting heavy weren't seeing. And yeah, it kind of changed my mind to that. It doesn't have to be completely functional, and it might actually add some function to your life too, or increase the amount that you can lift on the main lifts, or improve your, CrossFit Metcon times if thrusters are easier because now you've done a ton of seated dumbbell overhead press. There's more value to it than just the quote function to it. And that's why it's like,
Yeah.
one of the 3 main tenets of the way that we train all of our clients now. And I think they appreciate that maybe they don't even know they're doing bodybuilding, but they're seeing the results of doing bodybuilding and seeing it translate to the function of their life
It's
too.
certainly more functional for making your wife more attracted to you.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still working on that, but yeah.
I mean, you summarized the intro to my book, which is obviously I've had the same change of heart.
Yeah.
um, but the intro is called History Repeats, and it's about this cycle we all went through where, well, guys like our age went through, where we got into it for bodybuilding and then CrossFit hit. CrossFit, starting strength, Olympic weightlifting, like they all kind of hit. And it became not about what you look like, but about what you can do. And it was like, yeah, dude, screw all that stuff. Like, we just need a chalk and a barbell, man. And like, who cares what you can curl? Like,
Keeping
who
pull-ups
cares?
for life.
Yeah, like, how much can you deadlift, dude? And that didn't matter to me at all. Like, my uncle was he was a bodybuilder back in the golden age, like the 70s. And
Nice.
yeah, and he was like, and when I started going to the gym, he called me and he's like, he lived in the East Coast. He's like, so how much are you squatting? I'm like, who squats?
Like, what's
What are
the
you
minimum?
talking?
I don't know.
He's like, you have to squat. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm gonna leg press and he's like, you have to squat. And then, but those old school guys, it was, in the York barbell days, it was like they lifted. They didn't
Oh
have,
yeah.
it was, and then we got into the Arnold thing and the Muscle Beach, and then then we got into the CrossFit thing, and everybody was like going back to basics, and they finally cared again about numbers, which was a great thing. And then we all got older and fat and hurt and bored. Like,
Some
unless you,
combination thereof.
yeah, yeah, unless you were like, you're like, oh, I'm a gifted power lifter and this is going to be my career. Most of us were like, okay, I'm a mediocre lifter. I'm bored as hell. Everything hurts and I'm fat. So what do I do? And so what else? It's like, hey, those machines look kind of cool. Maybe I'll try that. And then I had the same thing with you, where early on, I had a client who, when I was still militant strength training only, nothing for vanity, he insisted that he was going to do some like isolation exercises after he did his training in my gym. And about 6 weeks later, I just looked at him and I was like, damn, he looks good. like his like one of the things I've changed my mind on, which is not important enough to mention, or to go as its own thing, but is that the overhead press is good for building your shoulders. Like it's
Gotta,
not, I mean, it is,
Yeah.
But when I had, like, when I was just overhead pressing and, like, I would got up to like 200 for 5 or something, my shoulders just like, they look like shit. And then I was like, okay, I'm doing some lateral raises, and they like popped out.
Yeah.
You get this little like thing happening of this, like there's like a divot. I'm like, okay. So seeing that client years ago, and then and then noticing, like, maybe, like even the bench press, like the barbell bench press with the big arch, it's not good. It doesn't do shit for your chest. Like, you're artificially shortening the range of motion, you're arching, you're trying to move the bar this far.
Wide, super wide grip.
Yeah, like, okay, well, and then you do a set of dumbbell, like incline dumbbell presses, and like you're sore in places. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying soreness means you had a good workout, but like you're sore. So yeah, it's the natural progression, which is why I wrote that book. And
Yep.
and because I had the same thing. It's like, these guys are all going to get tired of doing just squatting and deadlifting, and they're going to want to do something. Like, I want to do something else, you want to do something else, and it's absolutely functional in that it keeps you doing it.
I would even say like our female clients appreciate this just as much as the men, because the the toned look that women want, you're never going to
Right.
get that unless you actually build some muscle. And doing, yes, the strength training because of all the hormonal responses you get to lifting heavy weights
Right.
too, but then doing enough of this isolation stuff to actually have a muscle where you want to see it is the secret sauce.
Yeah, and it's like all things, right? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. It's
Hmm.
not just powerlifting, it's not just bodybuilding. it You got to take in a lot of resources, and then you got to figure out that, like, it's probably a combination of the two.
Yep.
And kudos to the guys on both ends fighting the fight of, like, because if it wasn't for a guy like Rip, it wouldn't have moved the needle. You
Yeah.
have to have a guy who's just a diehard, that's his thing. Just like you have to have the CrossFit guys who are like, no, it's functional, it's nuts and seeds, it's like, you need those guys.
All
You need those
paleo all
guys.
day.
Right. But as the consumer, as the person looking for an answer, you need to listen to them, and you need to take you need to try that. You need to try that. And then you find the thing that works for you. And
Yeah.
most of the time it's like a blend of, like, yeah, like, having a strong squat and a deadlift makes me move better, but doing curls makes my arms look better.
Right.
And those are, I mean, I'm not going to tell
They're
you
all
which one is more
valuable.
important to me, but
Yeah. Right.
they're all valuable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. I think
All right.
that's a great one. All right.
What's your last one?
This is okay. My last one
Pick your favorite.
is, yeah, this is going to be the one that you don't need to take weight off the bar, that
Interesting.
you're allowed to try again. You're allowed to
Mm.
repeat a weight. And you kind of talked about this earlier, but so much of my early training was, if you go up 5 pounds and you don't get it, you failed.
Hmm.
You can try again, but if you fail one or two times, you have to reset. It's not
Yeah.
working. You
Yeah.
have to reset. You have to take weight off the bar, and you have to change your program, or you have to you got to take 10% off and work
Oh yeah.
back up, and then end up getting stuck in the exact same place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I switched to, again, this was all out of just, like we just talked about, doing the thing the way the guy says to do it, and then learning and doing it for long enough that you can start playing with it. And I was like, okay, I had just done the reset so many times. And then
Yeah.
you see, guys all the time, it's like the first roadblock they hit 2 months into their program, and they want to switch programs.
Yeah.
And you think, like, what if I had just tried it again?
Yeah. There's so many
And
things that it could have been.
right, you could, exactly. And so switching to, all of my programs use rep ranges after the novice phase. So 3 to 5, 5 to 8, whatever.
Yeah.
But let's, for the squat and deadlift, it's 3 to 5. If you get 5, you go up. If you don't get 5, try again.
Yeah.
Try again and try and get, if you got 2, try and get 3. If you got 3, try and get, when you finally hit 5, go up and weight. And don't take, and so, I've had periods of like sometimes 2 months where it was like, I got, I'm trying to pull a set of 5 deadlifts. I got 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 1 and then 3 and then 2 and then 1 and then 4 and it just, and I was like, I'm not taking weight off the bar. I like, and then, and I'm playing with my volume on the lighter day, trying to nudge it or pull it off, whatever, but
Yeah.
I'm not going down. And then
Yeah.
eventually that one day you just smoke 5. And
Isn't
then
it
you go,
amazing
"Look,
how many times when you do reset, you end up just getting stuck at the same place
exact same, you
anyway?
didn't fix
And
the
all you did was
problem."
waste a bunch of time.
Right, because you didn't. The only time that you need to reset is if you have a technique error that cannot be fixed. So if you have a woman whose knees are just collapsing in, or a guy, right? You can't keep piling weight on them.
Right.
You have to go back. Those muscles have to get strong, and then you can work back up. But
Yeah.
outside of that, or maybe being sick or injured or out of the game for 6 months, you don't reset. You earned every pound you put on that bar through hard work and sweat and anxiety and frustration and effort.
Yeah.
Don't give it up. Don't
And
take it off.
it's just like, it's counterintuitive too, because we know the only thing that's going to drive a better strength adaptation is having more stress. So wouldn't it be counterproductive to pull 15% off and just assume that just ramping back up to where we were with less stress is going to cause us to get stronger?
Right. Exactly. You end up, you don't learn how to get through that thing. And
Now, there's the other side of it too, where like somebody might need to take some weight off the bar too, because of what's going on up here. And that's like part of the job as a coach, to be like, this person is just going to give up altogether if I keep prescribing 405 and they just can't move it. Like, I might need to do something to keep them motivated to keep going.
So what I do in that situation is, and you're absolutely right. Like, I'm talking about not the guy that you're trying, I'm talking about like you, you as the lifter
Yeah.
need to not take weight off the bar.
Yeah.
But in your situation, what I typically do is I change the rep range. So if I go, look, you're shooting for 5, but 3 to 5, and we over and over again, he's not getting there. I will go, okay, we're going to change the rep range from 1 to 3 now for the foreseeable future, and like, if you can hit, now we're back to getting weight on the bar, and eventually you might. So this is why, like, the advanced program in my book is like cycling. You have a week where it's like 5 to 8, and then the week 2 is 3 to 5, and then week 3 is 1 to 3. And each one of those weeks in the cycle, you just stay there until, so I've got one of my best clients, he's squatting he pulled over 6, and he's squatting in the 500s for like volume, but he's been on this cycle. And, that first week where he's supposed to do 5 to 8 squats, he'll hit 6 or 7. Like, he's rarely hitting the top, and we're not putting weight on there that much, but it's making the 1 to 3 week go up. So like, I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
As long, like, do your best, and every once in a while he'll hit all 8, and then we go up 5 pounds for the next, but he might stay for 4 or 5 cycles, just adding reps to that range. But the important day, that third week where we're testing, like, what you can do for a triple, that keeps moving.
Yeah.
And that's
a fun way to train too, in my experience.
It's the problem with it, he's very consistent. And so that's why I can give a guy like that a program, because if you do all the work in week 1, you're doing sets of 8 squats, and then week 2 you miss because you just blew it.
Yeah.
Or you miss week 3, like, someone who's going to be on any, and then you get into 8-week cycles, like, forget it. Like, the average person is they're going to bust their ass building up all the volume, and then they're going to get the flu, and they're never going to see the payoff. So I don't, the most I'll go is like 6 weeks, because
Mm-hmm.
people can usually be consistent with that. But the main point is like the lesson that I wish I learned earlier in my career was you had a bad workout. Yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You look at your training over in months or weeks, not days, and you just who the hell knows why you had a bad workout. But put the weight on your back next time and try it again.
Yeah.
And try and do a little better. Try and get an extra rep. And if it does, and then try it again. Like, but don't take that weight off. Figure out, maybe you figure out what you have to do on light day, but don't let that don't get that off your back because because then you're just going to keep doing that.
Yeah. Or
And
one thing I like to go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, I had an injury where I tweaked my back. I know I said I didn't, but I did. I had a back tweak. Yeah. It's like this program, I never got hurt. But I tweaked it standing up off the toilet, not in the gym. Just
That's the way it goes.
the weirdest thing, man. Yeah. And it was devastating. Anyway, but I said, as I'm rehabbing, I'm like, I'm not squatting less than 405. Like that's like I worked my way to get above that. And I was like, I'll deload a little bit. Like I'll deload what I need to. But I am putting 405 on my back. I'm not giving that up.
Yeah.
And as long as it didn't like hurt,
Yeah.
like make the injury worse. And the same thing with the deadlift. I'm like, I'm going to back off because I haven't lifted in 2 weeks, but I'm not pulling less than 450. Like, and even if I get one rep, whatever, I'm not giving that up.
Yeah.
And I gave it up so many times when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
So many times. Oh, this is hard. Let me do 531. I'll switch to that program. Oh, the text, like just imagine if you got to your top, whatever you squatted for your best set of 5, and then you just kept going. Like where we'd all be like,
yeah,
we'd all be more jacked, bigger and stronger than we are. But this is why we can help other people.
And I would
because we made all the mistakes.
And instead of like thinking about, okay, I didn't hit my reps this week at the weight. Like instead of taking weight off the bar, like double down on your recovery efforts, keep the weight the same too. Like you might be able to also kind of placebo yourself into hitting the weight because you prioritize your sleep, you drank less alcohol, you ate the right number of calories, that kind of stuff. It matters.
Totally. Yeah. Your head is your biggest enemy. And we talked a little bit about this last time I was on here, but it's like, one of our guys just posted on Reddit that like he was a burn victim and 50% of his body was burned, and he was and he was recovering from that and working in PT, and he just had this nurse who would just keep telling him don't quit, just don't give up. If you don't quit, like not every day is going to be easy, but as long as you don't quit, you're still in the game. And he moved on to get back and then start weightlifting, and had a moment where he was stuck at the same weight over and over on the squat. And then he just heard the nurse's voice, like, don't quit. And he was like that. He's like, I got it. I finally got all the reps. And from that day forward, I was a different guy.
That's awesome.
Because and it's like, that's the point of all this stuff. It's like the physical, whether you do curls or ab work or whatever, you're paleo or carnivore, who cares?
Yeah.
Like it's the thing of like there are lessons. Yes, there are lessons in here that are available to all of us.
Yeah.
And they will change you if you just, I don't care what program you do, just learn that thing where you learn how to grind, you learn how to push, you learn how to do something you don't want to do every week in little increments, and you don't take the damn weight off the bar. You figure out a way to either maintain or go up.
Yeah, I love it.
And that goes out to, and then that's everywhere. That's the rest of your life. All that mentality of like, I'm not
outside the gym.
I'm pushing. Yeah. I don't back off. I push through things.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man, what a great place to wrap it up. But before we go, where can people go buy this new book?
So Radically Simple Muscle is available in paperback. on Amazon as of yesterday. And there's the Kindle version up there. And then on my website, if you guys are not anti-Amazon people, which I'm surprising number of people are,
Really?
the digital versions are on my website, hornstrength.com. You just on the menu, Radically Simple Muscle. You can get the PDF, the Kindle version, all that stuff directly from me. I don't really care. I just want people to have the information. And for those who have purchased the original version one that came out a couple months ago, the updated version is free. So you just log into your account and download it. So
Okay, awesome.
anywhere,
And you're
anywhere,
on,
man.
and tell people where you're at on social media too.
Oh, okay.
Your favorite topic.
Yes. I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/hornstrength is my YouTube channel. Every Friday we do Form Check Friday, which is like my favorite thing. People post on Reddit. I go through on Friday and just do on the fly form checks, and then I post up the video of me ripping people apart. But it's super fun. So if you want
That's awesome.
if you want your form checked by me, you can go on Reddit. It opens every Wednesday. There's a thread for it. You just post your video. That's the big one. And then Instagram at Horn Strength, where I post pictures of my dog and
In the mountains.
yeah, mountains, it's whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and then Twitter, I forget it. I'm done with X. Like,
Okay.
it's the yeah.
I'm not on there
It's
either.
oh, I posted a thing that I posted on Instagram of this woman who did a fantastic job on our Form Check Friday, like, and I had a before and after with her squat. It's like
Oh, I
she's
remember
like
that.
barely getting up, you know, head up. Just she had never squatted, and then
Yeah.
she got a real decent squat. It's like flying up. So you see these before and after where she's just struggling with improper form and then smoking her reps. And you put it up on Instagram, everybody's like, this is great. You put it on Twitter, and most people are like, hey, that's great. And then half the people are like, the before looks better. You're an
Yeah.
idiot.
Yeah. What's she doing so leaned over?
Or here's what I would have told her. Like, I don't care what
I didn't ask.
like yeah, you know, it's just that, yeah,
It's
we
the
need
Wild
that
West out there,
algorithm
man.
back that Elon took away, because that thing was at least it showed me things I was interested in. So anyway,
Yeah.
thank you for having me again, man.
Yeah,
This is
man, this
always
was
fun.
fun. Hope people enjoy it. Y'all go check out Paul's book and follow him on the social.
All right,
Okay.
man.
All right. Catch you next time.